Mr. Chuck McGee, what's happening?
Good evening, Tony. How the heck are you?
Pretty good, man. So we are in Santa Clara, California?
That's correct. At least I hope so. I've been lied to about this location for a long time.
I know, man. This is pretty rad. We're in this like really old house. I guess it's been here for generations.
Yes. It's my uncle's house now, but used to belong to my grandfather.
And so your grandfather's story, man, we got to get into this because he sounds like a really cool dude.
Pretty much so, yeah. I like my grandpa. William Hilton. He was a lawyer, and he basically helped figure out where a case would be tried. So you and your wife break up. She's from another country. She takes your kids. Where's the case get tried? He'd help figure out the laws, and the case would be tried pretty much for whoever called him first would win.
Yeah, so like if somebody took their kid like out of country, like out of the U.S., he would figure out a way to get the case tried back in the U.S.
Yes, citing laws and regulations in cases that came before. I am not a lawyer. I don't even pretend to understand what he did, but it was pretty awesome to listen to him talk about his work.
Yeah, and so he's like a Hilton.
Yeah, one of the Hiltons.
So
yeah.
you're related to the Hiltons.
I am. I think I'm like third or fourth cousin, so I don't think that's much of anything. But yeah, they're third or fourth cousins of mine.
Yeah. So was which Hilton is actually running the Hilton?
Baron Hilton is running Hilton Hotels.
Okay, got
Conrad
it.
Hilton's son. And
Got it.
Conrad Hilton started Hilton Hotels. Baron now runs it, and that's who's in charge now.
Right. And you said at one point when you were living in LA that your third cousin, Paris Hilton, almost ran you over.
Yes, it happens. Or someone that looked strikingly a lot like her.
Okay. So with your grandfather, he passed away.
He did.
Yeah. And at his funeral, you had mentioned that they played like one of the cases.
At an homage to him, yeah. Not at the family funeral, but at one of the law schools, they told a story about how in one of his cases, a lawyer tried to cite a certain statute against him. And my grandfather said, I have an objection. That statute doesn't apply here. And the judge says, why? What makes you the expert? He's like, well, I wrote it, and it doesn't apply here. The case was dismissed right away.
Right away.
Check your sources before you cite something. Make sure it's not the guy you're going against. That doesn't look well for your case.
That's crazy. So he's never lost a case like you had
mentioned?
Lost. Okay.
But in the end of his career, one of his favorite things to say is, well, whoever calls me first is going to win. He just had that level of confidence and surety. He gave speeches all over the world about his specific style of law, and it was amazing. In the winter of his life, he was still being asked to speak all over the world, and it was just impressed to be like, where were you this year, Grandpa? He's like, well, I went to Japan and Mexico a couple times. So he would just offhandedly mention how he jet set around the world, made his own clothes, didn't drive a car, always took the train or rode his bike up until pretty much the end when he couldn't ride his bike anymore.
That's wild, man.
Yeah, he liked being natural.
Yeah, so I mean, this is huge because I guess, like you were saying, like some of the parents or one of the parents would take their kids to their home back in the Middle East, and he was able to get these kids back to the
He'd have the case tried in the U.S., and if the parent won the case, the kids would stay.
Right, because the kid was born in the U.S.
But it also had dual citizenship because of his mom or her mom.
So in some ways where it's like kidnapped because they're not citizen of that Middle East country.
No, they would have dual citizenship because the mom was that. So technically, is it kidnapping? Is it not? Where's the case tried? It's very tricky because, she's a citizen or he's a citizen of this country. So the kid's got dual citizenship. The kid is there now, so there's a strong reason for it to be tried there. But then again, in America, this is where he was from. This is where the crime took place. So it's wherever the law could prove the case should be tried, they'd have to honor that.
Yeah, and I fully understand that because I'm actually a Greek citizen. I didn't know that until they took me aside at the airport the second time I was there visiting my family, and they said, oh, by the way, you just overstayed your time here in Greece, and now you're subjected to Greek law. Now you got to serve in the military.
Oh, goodness.
So I was like, but I'm an American citizen. They're like, yeah, but you're also a Greek citizen. Now And because you overstayed, you're subjected to Greek law. So we are going to actually keep you here. And they actually like pulled me aside, and my sister and her husband had been with me, and they're like, you guys can go to the gate, go to the airplane. We're taking him. And so they put me in this room, and for like, you know, maybe 20, 30 minutes, I was just sitting there like prepared to actually enter the Greek military. And so they actually took me into one of the superior's office, and I was sitting there, and it looked like some black and white like scene from one of those movies with like an old rotary phone, and the guy's like, you know, this is really serious matter, you know. And I was like, apparently. And I was like, I understand that you guys have this law, but I'm an American citizen. They're like, yeah, but you're Greek, and so you have to serve your time, your conscription, I guess that's what they call it. And he's like, let me see what I can do. And he picked up the phone, used the rotary, and then he's speaking in Greek, like, Tikani poli kala. And I was like, I don't know how I know that Greek language. But anyways, he hangs it up and says, it's your lucky day. We're going to let you go. But when you come back to Greece, you have to sign up for the military and go back to Thessaloniki. And I was like, okay, thank you. He's like, now go get your plane. I just barely made.
Have you been back to Greece?
I've not been back to Greece in like 8 years.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'd go back either.
Yeah, but apparently like I'm like too old. I also have like medical clearance as well, you know, only having one kidney, being hearing impaired. So
not speaking Greek.
Not speaking Greek. So yeah, I fully understand like that, you know, when my mom and father had divorced, that could have been a possibility, you know, if we had been taken to Greece, you know, and she had to like try to like get us back per se. So that's really cool that your grandfather did that.
He did, yeah. It's nice. When he loved bad lawyer jokes, but I said, aren't you one of the good lawyers? He said, it depends. If I'm on your side. But generally, the people who go against me don't like me. So it's all a matter of perspective, I guess.
Yeah. So Chuck McGee III.
Yep, Charles Richard McGee III, actually. But I go by Chuck because that last part's a mouthful.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get a little into like your own background. So right now, and then we're going to go like a little bit into the past, but right now you're currently a Wim Hof practitioner, and how would you call yourself?
I think instructors are good.
Instructor, okay.
Because I can teach you the knowledge I have, but I can't breathe for you, and I can't sit in the ice for you. And there's only so much coaching that can be done until you have to take it and take responsibility for it and just do it. So I like the term instructor because we'll teach you everything you need to know to practice and practice safely, but you have to do it.
Right. And that's what I love about you, because you have that like presence of mind and as a guide and instructor to be fully there for the people as they enter this really extreme ice bath, you know. So where did that sort of compassion or care come from, you know, as you're overseeing and making sure that people are safe?
Well, my degrees, my bachelor's and master's degree are in theater. So that's all about the ensemble, the group, the troupe, making sure everybody goes. The show's got to go on. So there's that family unit there. Even though we're all separate, we all have our own separate jobs. We still all look out for each other. And I think it really came from bartending. I was a bartender for 16 years, and you can't serve people something that makes them not as smart as they normally are and not watch out for them. I should preface that with it depends on your attitude.
Right.
Some people I would go to the ends of the earth for, and other people I would just watch fall off. But being behind the bar and just the energy of that group and the regulars and the people coming in and out, it was my job to watch for people and to let them get safely drunk and keep a safe environment where you don't have to worry about, another drunk person ruining your night, or, that guy's had too much, so let's get him out of here, or that guy just came from another bar, so, he can't be here either. It's just being aware. So it taught me to be hyper aware, which is what you need when someone's getting in the ice. So.
Right. And so, you know, in that loud environment, you're like fully focused and alert, and you're having conversations with people at the same time. It just depends on like whether it's like peak time or. Yeah.
If it's 3 people deep Saturday night at midnight, I'm not really talking to anybody besides your order, and your order at the same time. And then I'll make like 15 drinks at once, get them out, and move on to the next person. But I was fortunate enough to work on Monday and Tuesday nights where I would be able to bartend by myself, and it wasn't super busy, but I also didn't have to split tips. So I would have time to talk with people, to tell jokes, to like hear people's stories. And I loved collecting drunk people's stories. Like sometimes I couldn't write the stuff they came up with. So like they're just, some of them were fun, some of them were tragic, and others were just off the wall. So I don't know. It's that atmosphere is just, I kind of miss it, but I also don't miss the stress that it brought.
Right. So on some levels, you learn to like be in a chaotic environment, you know, and then other levels more of a relaxed environment. So those two things enabled you to like really be present with the people. It transferred over to like guiding them through the Wim Hof method and getting into the ice bath. And
even to an extent to the hikes on Mount Sniezka in Poland. Yeah. Because it can get chaotic up there. It can get stressful, and the instructors don't have time to get stressed out and let things overwhelm us. We have to be present. We have to watch the participants. And if I didn't have the training to embrace the chaos, that would have been a lot harder than it was.
Right, because you're taking people up to a high elevation in the snow, and sometimes there's a blizzard that may pass through.
Right, well, if a blizzard passes through, we put our clothes on.
Okay.
We're crazy. We're not stupid.
Right. Okay.
So we have multiple points we can stop on the way and just get dressed and turn around. And sometimes it's not about the summit. We don't have to reach the summit of the mountain. It's the journey, and knowing when to turn around, even though that goal you want is right there in front of you. You can see the top, but today's just not that day.
It sounds like Everest, right? Because so many people are paying like I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe $1 million to get, you know, guided up to summit either Everest or K2. But the conditions aren't right that day. So they're like, sorry, we got to turn around. Your life is in jeopardy. And so you have the same responsibility with some of these people who are paying money to come and summit the same place that Wim Hof, the Iceman, summits, you know, in his shorts, by the way.
Without a shirt. He usually wears a beanie and a pair of shorts. And sometimes shoes.
Okay. Crazy. So so you're there calling that shot basically.
All of the instructors, we work as a team together. We've got walkie-talkies. We're communicating up and down the line. We're watching everyone for the slightest bit of discomfort. If someone's like, you know, moving a little bit, we'll say, you know, you should probably put your jacket on right now. But a lot of people don't want to. They're like, no, I can do it. And it's, well, maybe it's not about you can do it. We know you can do it, but what would you be proving? Who are you competing against? Because these other people walking, they're on their own journey. You're walking it with them, but it's their journey just as this is yours. And there's no, like, I put my jacket on before, and it's okay. You don't always have to go to the extreme for as long as that next guy next to you, because you never know what they've been through. So I don't compare myself to my neighbors, let alone Wim. That would be insane. How do you measure up to that guy?
Yeah, so he set the Guinness Book of World Record for longest time in ice, right?
An hour and 53 minutes.
Right, so almost 2 hours, right? Yeah. And so other people see his story and they're like trying to be like him, or they want like a photo op or something, something to like take back home and say, hey, look at me, look what I did, right?
Yeah.
But they've had like the training or the years experience that Wim has. And this is like across the board for like all kinds of feats or, you know, bucket list challenges that people are like trying to do. And your role as a guide and instructor would be like, hey, sorry, you know, like your safety is important. It's your life.
It's like cutting off a drunk person. They don't want to be cut off. They're an adult. They don't like being told no. They don't want to admit that maybe now is a good time to turn around. And sometimes people get a little aggravated. I've seen people, it's time to put your clothes on. They'll glare at me like they want to hit me. And I'm like, well, you can hit me, but you're going to waste your body heat doing so. So take a swing and then you'll put your jacket on because you'll be cold and you've just dropped focus. So if I hadn't had the experience dealing with people who don't want to do what I'm asking them to do, even if it's in their own best interest, that would have been nigh impossible.
Right. And if you have to, I mean, it's not like you're a tiny guy. And so you've actually had like bouncing experience in the bar as well, or?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I was security/bartender, and there were times when I had to be security/bartender. That was just the way it was. And it was when someone says, well, I'm not going to leave, and it's time for them to leave, you have two choices. Either let them stay and cause a massive scene, or you've got to touch someone and get them out. And I tried to always be as gentle as possible. But if someone's trying to hit you with a pitcher, I don't really know how gentle you're allowed to be. Or a pool stick, or a pint glass, or a bar stool, or a candy machine.
Interesting. So people have actually like thrown like glass objects at you, or wood, or whatever they can get their hands on.
Yeah. The most common item is a bar mat filled with all the nasty stuff that we've been pouring. That's just gross.
Yeah.
You're covered in just sticky ick. And you're just like, oh, I feel I need to bathe.
Yeah.
And you go home and take 2 showers.
So the funny part of this story is that you found out about Wim Hof, the Iceman, from a
customer I couldn't serve any more alcohol to because he was intoxicated on another substance. And he came in and he would not leave until I promised to look up the Wim Hof method. And I watched the Vice documentary that night at his suggestion. And to this day, I am forever grateful that he came into the bar and would not stop talking about it.
That's
and
crazy.
When I first heard about it, I thought it was this crunchy hippie granola thing. But I'm a type 1 diabetic. And in the Vice documentary, he says it helps optimize your cardiovascular system. I said, what have I got to lose?
Right, because being type 1 or type 2, you have issues with circulation.
Yeah. Well, type 1 is the type of diabetes I have. So I'm insulin dependent. And if my blood sugar gets too high, it really messes up my cardiovascular system. So I wanted to do something that would help prevent or mitigate any damage done. And thanks, ice baths have been shown to help make you more insulin sensitive. So I started taking ice baths and doing the breathing, and the amount of insulin I needed to take declined. Now my insurance company switches my insulin up on me whenever they feel like it. So that's kind of fun, but it's still, I'm at a lower amount of insulin than I should be. So I'm pretty excited about that.
That's cool. And so from what I remember, you weren't born type 1 diabetic. Like it was a rare thing that actually you had it happen to you, or received the symptoms of it.
There's
late in life.
3 ways to become a type 1 diabetic. The first way is genetic. You're born with it. You get it when you're really young. The second way is the one a lot of people are familiar with. You're type 2 and you just don't manage it properly, and eventually it progresses into type 1 diabetes, which means you're just insulin dependent. The difference between type 1 and 2, type 1 has to take insulin, type 2 can take like metformin or something and be okay. And the third one is an autoimmune reaction in your body, and they're not sure why your body does that or why it starts attacking yourself, but that's what happened to me. They think it was attributed to a mold allergy. I lived in Humboldt County. It's a temperate rainforest. Everyone who lives up there deals with mold all the time. I'd lived there since I was a little kid, and they think it just got to be so much that it affected my pancreas. But I got the eat right and get healthy illness. So of all the illnesses to get, I got the one that if I take care of it, also no negative symptoms.
How did you know that you were like having the symptoms of this?
I thought I was dying. I was just in an incredible amount of pain. It felt like someone was taking a knife and just twisting it in each of my kidneys. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I would throw up after I ate like anything. My body was just shutting down. My blood sugar was super high because my pancreas stopped working, so it wasn't processing anything. So I went to the hospital, and I think I was the only person there that day praying that they had a kidney infection. But it wasn't the case.
Jeez, man. Yeah, I just can't imagine, like, you know, cause how old were you when it happened?
32. I'm 39 now.
Okay. So what have you done to basically keep yourself healthy besides like the Wim Hof method?
Well, I eat nutritionally close to a ketogenic diet, but because I take insulin, it's hard for me to enter ketosis, because if I have to take insulin, it pushes me out of ketosis. So I eat a very few amount of carbs, lots of vegetables, and intermittent fasting, I would say, has been one of the biggest things that's helped, because I'm not eating as much. I don't have big swings in my blood sugar. I wake up feeling great. I actually have more energy than when I was eating 3 or 4 times a day, trying to keep everything perfect. So I'll start eating around noon. I'll have like a hamburger patty or a chicken breast, maybe fry a piece of cheese to make it like a taco shell.
Oh man, I've had that before at your place. Delicious.
So a piece of fried cheese, maybe some tomatoes, lettuce, onions, pickle, and eat that with a side salad. And for dinner, I'll have a big salad and a small amount of protein. And I'll just try and favor getting most of my carbs from the vegetables I eat.
Okay. Can you explain like ketogenic, like what exactly type of diet is that?
Ketogenic is a high fat diet, around 70% fat, 20% protein, and 5% carbs. 25% protein. There we go. That's 100. I can do math. And it's basically like if you want about 70% of your caloric intake to be from fat. So I actually eat about 10 to 15% carb intake and at about 30% protein, and then the other part fat, because I have to, keep the insulin keeps taking glucose out of my body. So if I don't add carbs in, they're just going to be taken out and I'll pass out. And I don't want that to happen.
Right.
But it does keep my blood sugar relatively low.
Okay.
So I try and stay below like 150 all the time. And if I go really high, it could be from stress, adrenaline. Stress is the big one.
Right. So how does stress like increase your blood sugar levels?
Basically, I start to breathe incorrectly, go into fight or flight, and just get really tense. I get an adrenaline boost. And a lot of people, if your pancreas is working fine, that's okay. You'll just process it. But a type 1 diabetic, when they get an adrenaline boost, their liver dumps glucose into their body. So you see a big spike in your blood sugar.
Right.
So
like in fight or flight, you're releasing glucose as quick energy, right? To either fight or flee.
Yeah.
Right. Or there's the frozen part, right?
Yes.
The freeze. But essentially adrenaline, cortisol that's released during this time is mobilizing these sugars out of what your liver, your heart, your muscles, skeletal muscles.
Well, so your muscles have the energy to run or not.
Right.
So you'll see that, like, I have a friend who does jujitsu, and if he's practicing at the dojo, his blood sugar is pretty okay. But if he's going to go out and fight and he's going to go to a tournament, his blood sugar spikes really high before the first match. But that's a natural phenomenon that happens with fighters. So he was the one who first made me aware that could happen. Okay. And I'm really grateful for him for that.
That's cool, man. So as you found out about the Wim Hof method from this drunk dude, or you said he was on something else, yes, but he wouldn't leave you alone till you actually went and saw that Vice documentary, which I actually saw myself and found out about, like the Iceman, and I was like, holy shit, there's this guy that figured out like how to increase the inner fire in our bodies, which we lost touch of because of modern living and
you live in a narrow band of comfort in our lives. If you think about the temperatures people are exposed to, you may be exposed to extreme cold or extreme heat, but it's generally from the car to your house or wherever you're going, so your exposure is very minimal. And in doing so, your body's never uncomfortable. It's never forced to adapt, to change, and it kind of sits there. And it's happy to be comfortable. The brain doesn't like change. It tries to keep you, safe and secure. So in doing these uncomfortable things, I've become more comfortable in my life. So,
right. And that was what Wim was promising, is that people would discover health happiness and strength through doing his method. And a lot of people are anxious and depressed, or just pretty much like you said, are always in a comfort zone because we're like constantly indoors. So if we're not in touch with nature, that part of our brain has in some ways like gone dormant. So what was it that really like triggered you, besides the fact that it helps for, you know, like this autoimmune condition that you developed?
Well, I think the best way to put it is it let me know that I don't have to be an automatic anymore. I didn't realize that everyone was putting their body like a car and just drive and just going and accepting the pain they have every day, accepting depression, accepting all of these disorders. And I never realized that there's a stick shift and a clutch and a brake right in front of me. I just never saw it. And by controlling my breath, by leaning into the uncomfortable environment that is taking an ice bath or going for a cold exposure hike, I can control my stress level. I can notice when my body is starting to become stressed and go, okay, I can calm myself down right now. I can slow my breath down. And in slowing my breath down, I can keep myself calm. And if I can stay calm, I won't freak out or get stressed by this. And driving in the Bay Area is a great place to practice staying calm. Any
metropolitan city, for sure. Yeah.
Anywhere you've got traffic is a great way to practice patience.
Yep. And so with that understanding, like if people are listening and want to know, like, how is that going to translate into their life in terms of, you know, doing the cold bath and learn how to breathe, what are the benefits that they can expect to have in their lives?
Well, my pulse rate before I did the Wim Hof method, because I was a diabetic, they check me all the time. My pulse rate was about 85 to 90 resting, which is not the healthiest. I was on blood pressure medication because my blood pressure was too high. And the third pillar of the Wim Hof method is mindset. And I really went for it. I still practice every day. And my blood pressure dropped. I'm not on blood pressure medication anymore. My resting heart rate's down to 65, which is incredible. My heart beats 30 beats less a minute all the time now. That adds up over time. And when I see something stress me, I let it hit me full force. And I just accept the fact that this is going to be stressful, but I know how to handle stress. I know how to handle stress because I can handle stress in the ice. I am comfortable with the uncomfortable now. So I let it hit me. I let it take my breath away like the ice does. And then I take control. I slow my breath down because that's the one thing I can control is how I'm breathing. So I'll slow it down. 3 in, 6 out. And I just focus on that. And even if it is a flight or fight situation, it still gives me that calm clarity to see things without like being clouded by stress or anxiety or anger that used to just bubble forth.
Oh, cool, man. So this gave me the idea right now to have you actually take us through a breathing demonstration.
We can do that.
So anybody that's listening, like what should they do right now?
What are they trying to do? Are they trying to wake up and get more energy, or are they trying to relax?
Let's say get more energy.
So if they want to get more energy, that's deep into the belly, up into the chest. And you want to imagine your breath like gear 1. So gear 1 is just your normal breath. Gear 2 is about 20% faster. Whatever that number means to you. It's just a little faster, and it's circular. No pause between inhale and exhale. Try and breathe in through your nose, but get the air in however you can, nose or mouth. So it's just in, belly, up into the chest. And you just let it go, and you just find that rhythm. It's 30 or 40 breaths, just in and out. You're gonna feel lightheaded, so lay down. Find a safe place to sit, never while you're driving, never in water. Don't do this while you're walking. And just breathe in and out, in and out at a nice steady pace. And after about 30 or 40 breaths, we're going to hold our breath on the exhale. So we're going to do 5 more. 1. Last 2, fully in and out. Last 1, in and let go comfortably. And if you feel like you need to take another breath, that's okay too. But just hold. You might feel lightheaded, your hands might tingle, your face might feel funny, and that's all normal. And you just want to hold in this stillness. Eventually, you want to become aware of your heart beating, any other phenomena you're feeling in your body. One of my favorite things to tell people is this is something you are doing, not something happening to you. And as we hold our breath, eventually your body will say, it's time to breathe. And when you get that breathe, you take a deep breath and hold for about 10, 15 seconds. And then just exhale. And we do that about 3 or 4 times in the beginning.
Wow, man. I'm high right now.
A little bit, probably.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty familiar with this. Obviously, I've done the Wim Hof method and met Wim myself.
Yes.
And for the people who are listening, it's such a treat to be able to change your state. For example, if you're feeling a little fatigued or just tired, or you need a quick burst of energy, this actual method you just taught is a great one to boost energy levels.
Yeah. And if you want to you can even use it to calm down. If you favor your exhale and you make your exhale longer than your inhale and you start to breathe slow and just circular, your whole body will start to slow down and you can just calm yourself down. You can. What I love about the Wim Hof method is there's no dogma. It's just, here's the basic framework. Use it as it applies to you. 30 to 40 breaths, exhale and hold. Inhale for 10 or 15 seconds after you exhale. Repeat 3 or 4 times. The speed is up to you. How many times you do it is really up to you. But it's just, this is the framework Wim found that works the best. And it's pretty spectacular that all you have to do this is breathe.
Right. So his famous saying is,
it's breathe, motherfucker. As irreverent as the man himself. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Wim doesn't take himself very seriously, and that's why, well, that's one of the main reasons I respect him so much.
Yeah,
he always has fun with what he's doing.
Yeah, that's obvious when you meet him. And anytime you actually get a chance to like listen to him on podcasts or any interviews or see documentaries based on him, he always has that like infectious humor. You know, he's never taken himself seriously, and you know, you just can't like help to not like love him. You know, he's just like a adorable human being.
He really is. It's hard not to smile when he's around.
Yeah, and crazy and insane, and he owns it. That's the beauty part of it, you know.
He's okay with it, so why shouldn't you be?
So what was it like meeting him for the first time for you?
I thanked him. I said, you know, your method helped me gain a deeper control and understanding of my diabetes. And what he said to me blew me away. I've met a lot of people who call themselves gurus. Wim does not. And they'll say, you know what? I'm glad I could help. But Wim said, it's your victory. You did the breath work. You did what you needed to do to take care of your own health. Thanks for being you, and thanks for trying my method. And that was it. He took the compliment, but it blew me away that he's like, oh, it was you who did the work. I just showed you the path. You had to walk it. And I think that's where I was like, you know, I want to teach this.
That's cool. And so when you went to Sniezka in Poland, Mount Sniezka the first time, were you actually like a participant or you were guiding?
I had just finished the last part of the instructor course. So I didn't know if I'd passed yet. I didn't know if I was going to be an instructor. I wanted to. I'd taken all the tests. I'd done all the courses. And I went as an assistant. And I got to practice under Jerome Werens was there, Daniel Kluken was there, and Bart Pronk was there. And I was assistant to Jerome, but those 3 gentlemen taught me so much in practical experience that it was an amazing time. I got to assist Jerome. We stayed in the house, Wim's house, so that was kind of neat to be able to do that. We hiked Sniezka. We got to go into that beautiful waterfall pool, and I was a participant and assistant. I got to do both. So I got to see the best of both worlds, and it was pretty amazing.
That's cool. And so one of the things that you learned was just, in some sense, like the tribal part of it, and tapping into like these higher states of like consciousness through like the breathing. And then there's like, you know, just like a natural like chant that happens, like soon, like anytime like you're around Wim, you just can't help to like turn into like a savage human being, you know, and start infectious. Like chanting and you know, want to go run around and like act crazy and you know, have a fun time.
It's true. It just naturally comes out. One person will start, and then the whole group starts, and then you just feel safe in your tribe, and you feel safe to be you, and know that these people come from all walks of life. Last year, we had people from all over the world, fashion designers from India, who made it to the top of Mount Sniezka. We had people from Bahrain, Kuwait, the Middle East, where it's super, super hot, not a lot of snow. And they made it to the top. And it just shows you that people from all walks of life can do this. No experience, no prior training, and they just did it. They set their goal and they accomplished it. And that's, to me, is the most awe-inspiring thing I've seen. Is people come and they're like, yeah, I heard about this, I want to try it. And then they summit a mountain in a pair of shorts and gloves and a hat. Something they thought to be impossible in the morning, they accomplish in the afternoon. And watching people's journey is just, it's a privilege to be able to watch.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the beauty of the whole system and the method is that it's actually scientifically being validated and researched. So that's the great thing about Wim, is that he's like,
at Wim's request, actually.
Yeah,
he wants to push it into science as much as possible.
Yeah, so it's not just, you know, some wacky method, so some cult leaders doing. I mean, he like jokingly talks about like drinking the Kool-Aid, you know, like
he warns against drinking your own Kool-Aid, actually.
Yeah. So besides like these people from all walks of life that came and actually summited Mount Sniezka, especially like places that were like hot, you know, what other types of sort of I guess symptoms that people were relieved from, you know, that you've actually witnessed outside of your own?
I've seen people with rheumatoid arthritis see their symptoms lessen, sometimes completely go away. But
which looks like the last podcast we had, I interviewed Scott Riley from Northern Ireland.
Yep.
And he also said that through juicing and exercise, and then finally the Wim Hof method and plant medicines, he was able to be symptom-free from rheumatoid arthritis.
Right. That's incredible. I've seen people with depression. I mean, the Wim Hof method doesn't cure anything, but I've seen people get a better control of their depression because now they're aware of what's happening in their body, and they can hear that first set of dominoes start to fall. Whenever I was starting to get depressed, I would kind of feel it coming on. And if I can catch it in that beginning part and go sit in an ice bath, I can stop the rest from falling. So it's given me and a bunch of friends I know that control to stop that sequence from going further. It makes me aware of what's triggered it, and I can stop it. I've seen people who are constantly stressed, like have ulcers, they're throwing up from it, and this gives them a healthy way to channel that energy out and to calm themselves down. There's, you know, just, I have one friend who had irritable bowel syndrome, and she's seen a little bit of help for that, but she's just started.
So it helped with like inflammation.
It helps with inflammation. And they found that chronic inflammation can lead to depression. So if you can find a way to reduce inflammation in your body, which is what this method helps do, it's only going to help you.
Right. And so what about, you know, your family, like your kids, your wife? Have they taken it on as like serious as you have?
Well, my son is 7, my daughter is 9. So I hope they're not feeling any stress or anything in their lives, and they can just be kids. But they'll do the breath work with me sometimes for fun, and I let them play, or they'll go play in the ice bath for a few seconds and then get out, and that's fine. I just let them play and be them. My wife practices the breath work, and she's pain-free. She doesn't have any pain. She's not really a stressed out person. That's my job. I'm the stressed out one that's hurt. So she just does the breath work, and when she feels the need to take an ice bath, she does. So
that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I've seen the ice box that you
freezer.
had. Yeah, so the chest freezer. For those who are listening, this is like a very, I guess, economical way to invest in this thing that you can put in your house, this chest freezer, to do
I wouldn't put it in your house. Maybe your garage or your back porch.
Okay. Yeah, not in the house per se, but yeah.
But I have a 15.5 cubic foot chest freezer. I've sealed all the internal seams with a mold resistant bathtub silicone. I fill it up with water, put a little salt in there, and cool it down. It's on maybe 5 hours a day in 1 hour increments. The water stays 33 degrees. The chest freezer cost me $400 2 years ago. And I was spending, a bag of ice is $5 or $6, and you need 5 or 6 of them. So that's $25 to $30
every time you do
you do an ice bath. And if
Right.
I want to do one 5 days a week, that's $150 a week.
Right.
It just wasn't cost effective.
Yeah, so this thing paid itself off basically, and you were able to get it like used on like Craigslist or something?
No, that was brand new.
Really?
Yeah, and just a heads up, don't ask in Home Depot or Lowe's if a body can fit in the freezer. They get really touchy about those questions. Especially if they find you sitting in one. They really didn't understand what I was doing, and they almost called the cops on me.
Oh man, like yeah, it's going for a test drive.
Yeah, why are you seeing if a body fits in that freezer? Because I'll be putting my body in it. So
even that sounds ridiculous, right?
It sounded a bit ridiculous.
They're like, so you're gonna like put yourself in a coffin? What are you doing? You know?
Yeah. The only rule we have for the chest freezers: always unplug it before you get in.
Yeah.
That's number one rule. Because electricity and water, for whatever reason, just aren't good bedfellows. It just doesn't work out well.
Yes. And that's super important. I mean, because like as you iterated and we're reiterating the importance of safety.
Safety first.
Yeah, safety
Never
first.
force anything.
Never force anything when you're hiking in these conditions.
Always have when I hike, I have an extra beanie, an extra set of gloves, another shirt, a sweatshirt, a jacket, the little quick break heat things. I'm prepared. We don't just go out like with nothing.
Just winging it. No way.
Never. Always prepared, and usually with a partner.
Yeah.
And even if your partner's clothed, that's okay.
Yeah. And obviously you would let somebody know if you're going somewhere hiking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's number
I mean, because that's the thing,
rule.
right? Like if you like get stuck in some blizzard or you're just cold and you have no way of warming yourself up, and then your mind starts, going offline.
You make decisions like a drunk person.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. People will get to the top of Mount Sniezka and they'll forget that we have to come back down. So they're at the top and they're celebrating and they're like, oh, I'm really cold. And it's like, yeah, we're only halfway done and you just dropped your focus. So we usually have everyone get dressed at the top. That's the rule.
Okay.
Without a doubt, everyone gets dressed at the top because people start to celebrate and get elated and they drop their focus and they start to get cold.
Right. So what about, like in the case of like going up there, if you guys do put clothes, you obviously put clothes back on, and then as you're going back down and you're warming up again, and people like start taking the layers off?
No.
Okay.
You got to keep your clothes on the rest of the trip.
Got it.
Because your body's been through a stressful ordeal, and there's only so much stress a body can take before it's like, no more. And we don't ever want people to hit that point. We want you to have a safe, with structure experience. I mean, we're pushing the limits of personal comfort, but if we don't ever want it to be unsafe. So we always have people put their clothes on and keep them on because it's just the safest thing to do.
So this goes into like listening and focus and like knowing where your line is, right? Because there's ego gets involved and people are like, oh, my line's here, but I have to do this, or they're like, I'm at the top and they're feeling pretty good, but it's mandatory to put the clothes back on, but they're just like, hey, I want to go back down there without, putting that extra layers on. So like, how do you like advise people on these sort of things? And even like going into the ice bath, like some people may go in like by themselves, right? There's so many things that could go wrong, including like breathing in the water, which you guys definitely
never do.
Right.
We never practice the Wim Hof method breathing in the ice. In the ice, we try and suggest 3 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Longer exhale than inhale, slow your heart rate down. And when we're walking, we try and do the same thing. And we'll start to hum when we walk too, because you can't breathe quickly when you're humming. Or you can, but it just makes you sound ridiculous.
Yeah, so there's a method to the madness.
There is.
And so again, like, people who are listening, these are all the sort of precautions to look for, right? Because if you're like new and naive, right, to this type of thing, and this goes across the board for like anything, including
people try and go hard real fast, and this
right.
isn't a method about going hard, because we're dealing with nature, and she's unforgiving. She is merciless. If you search for your limits in nature, you will find them, and you may not be safe when they come crashing down on you.
Yes.
If you get too cold, you lose dexterity in your hands, and it's hard to put on a jacket when you can't move your fingers. So what are you going to do if you're alone and you can't move your arms because you pushed too far? You didn't follow the safety precautions. You didn't go with a friend who can help you put your coat on. That's where trouble gets, and we want to avoid that as much as possible.
So what would you recommend for people that have dropped too low in core body temperature, and their first instinct is to, and I've done this myself, is to go and take a hot shower?
Don't do that.
Yes.
that could really hurt you.
Yes, that was excruciating.
So bundle up. Maybe a couple of heating packs on your body. Raise your core temperature. Drink warm tea or hot chocolate. A couple bites of M&M's, some Hershey bar, something to help get the endorphins released in your body, and gradually warm up. And then when you stop shivering, then go take a warm shower, not a hot shower, but a warm shower. And you can bring the temperature up as your body normalizes, but you can actually hurt yourself more going from extreme cold to a hot shower. It could really not be a pretty sight.
Yeah, it's intense. And so what like physiologically is happening? Why is there so much pain occurring when you go from being extreme cold to a hot shower?
So when you're really cold, your veins and arteries in your hands and your legs have constricted so that, your body's trying to protect your core, which has all your vital organs. It's the most important part, your core and your brain. So it tries to keep as much warm blood here as possible. And when you're super cold and you go back inside and you're starting to warm up even slowly, your veins and arteries are starting to dilate slowly. So that cold blood is now mixing with your body, and you're starting to cool off more and more. And you may not be outside, but your body's still cooling off. And then if you jump right into a hot shower, you're just expediting that process. So the hot water is going to make your heart beat a little faster, which is going to move cold blood through your body a lot faster, which hurts. And it's going to open up your veins and arteries in your body, because that's how they respond when they're warm. They dilate. So now you're basically pushing cold blood through open, dilated veins and arteries. Systemically.
Yeah, and the nerves
start to freak out.
Okay.
That's my understanding of it. And if someone out there knows a better answer,
Right. This also brings me to my mother. She just wants to tell you how much she loves you and how much
awesome.
You've like helped her, because she hasn't done like the full ice bath yet. She's done your breathing protocols.
Wim's breathing protocol.
Yeah, Wim's breathing protocols. And she had issues with her hand with pain, and you know me with my machine. I have a microcurrent device that I use to help people with pain symptoms, and we tried it and she got relief, but the pain just kept coming back, right? But in that one session with you, when you just encouraged her, not to go into the full ice bath, because like that's maybe like step 0 instead of step number 1, where some people are afraid to get into the ice bath. But you're like, hey, let's just put your hands in the water. Let's do step 0, as an entry point. And in doing that, her pain actually went away. And now through your recommendations, whenever it maybe creeps up or something, she'll do both cold and hot, and go back and forth, that contrast therapy. So it's made a huge difference for her.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, man.
It's my absolute pleasure. So yeah, if people are scared to go in the cold, try a cold shower. And the easiest way to try a cold shower in the morning is you just turn your water on and step in. It's going to get warm eventually. I mean, depending on how good or bad your pipes are. I mean, I've had someone say, well, my water stays cold for 3 minutes. Well, go in at 2 minutes and 30 seconds then. Try 30 seconds. And eventually you let it hit you. You let it, oh, okay. You slow your breathing down and then try a minute. And then try in the beginning, middle, and end, and just play with it. Have fun with it. It doesn't need to be this serious thing. So many people try and make it more than it is. And if you look at Wim, he has a sense of play with everything. Even he doesn't take it. I mean, we take it seriously when we're in the ice and we're doing cold exposure, but we have fun with it. We'll be singing along the way, or humming, or telling bad jokes, because when people laugh, they forget that they're cold. So it's just have fun with it. Play with it. If it's scary, do a little bit first. Try your hands. Just get your feet wet. It's not so scary. It's just something you're building up in your mind. Because the story you're telling yourself about how terrible the ice bath is going to be, I mean, a lot of people are in pain 24 hours a day. 24 hours a day they're hurting, or they have some depression or anxiety that's been plaguing them for years. But that's a discomfort they know. Sitting in the ice for 2 minutes scares the crap out of them. But you're in pain 24 hours a day. Just be uncomfortable in a different way for 2 minutes and see if it helps.
And so in that light, people are going in and they've had these stories in their head. You see, that's what's really interesting when, you set up the ice bath, and there's almost like this sense of anxiety coming, like performance, before giving a speech, you'll watch people like internalize. And it's interesting because you'll have like a bunch of people standing around. And, let's say we're setting up and we're bringing ice in, and you can start to see
watch their shoulders go up a little bit.
There's like tension in the air.
They're getting goosebumps, and it could be 105 degrees outside, but they're getting goosebumps from being cold, and they haven't even gotten in the water. That's just how powerful your mind is. You're afraid of the cold, so your body's reacting like it's cold, and it's 105 in Sacramento, and people are like, oh, I'm shivering right now. You're not even in the water.
Right? So it's inner narrative that's happening, and they're telling themselves this story. And then the moment that they actually take that initiative or decide I'm gonna do this, and I've heard it's about like fire walking as well, walking over like hot coals, but that you see like that moment of empowerment, that step in, and then they step in and you see like their breath is taken away, and they start like hyperventilating. And then with your guidance, you're getting them to like slow the breath down, feel, just let it like surrender, right?
Surrender to the moment. If you fight it, I mean, you can fight the ice. I don't know anyone who's ever beat it. not one. You have to surrender to it. You have to let the experience happen. You have to trust that your body will do what it knows how to do. You may not even know intellectually that your body knows how to respond to this, but it does. And the more you do it, the better your body gets at being uncomfortable. So then when an uncomfortable situation hits you, like an outside stressor, you go, I can deal with this. It's you notice how your body's reacting, and you're like, wait, I don't want to be like this right now. So I'm going to change it. And you're going to put it in manual rather than being automatic. And the analogy I use is a lot of people can react well to the storm. They can be buffeted by the winds, and they can move all around, and They can, you know, dodge the cow that's being pushed by the hurricane. But I'd rather be in the eye of the storm and be in the calm center and not be hit by the winds. And that's what this has taught me, is to be the calm center. And
and it's a valuable tool because you're not taught this kind of stuff when you're kids. I mean, it's rare that anybody understands how to prepare or even be poised in emergency situations, including fight or flight when you're under high stress. And so this is a great way to learn how to control your physiology, your psychology. And it's a moment that happens when you see people that finally like surrender. And then there's this serenity that overcomes them, and you see it in their face.
Their whole body drops. They sit like this, and then they just let go.
Right.
And you see that relief wash over them, and they finally. Some people, it's one of the first times they've surrendered in years.
Yeah.
And it's amazing every time I get to see it. That light kind of turns on, and they go, "Oh, I don't have to be this way."
Yeah, and it's an empowering moment, which is amazing. And what we forget is we are actually part of nature itself. So it's like whether or not you're gonna fight it or not, obviously you're gonna lose that battle.
Yeah.
And what's neat is that there's this mechanism or system or whatever you want to call it in our physiology that can be controlled consciously.
Yeah.
And so that's where focus comes in, and awareness and the ability to breathe, you know, through whatever sensations are coming through, you know.
And I see it as practicing with stress. Like, if you want to get good at Kung Fu, you practice Kung Fu for years so that it's muscle memory, so that when you have to use it, you know how. There was, before this method, for me, I didn't have any safe or constructive way to practice with stress. I would be under stress and I'd have to react. I couldn't see it coming. I couldn't calm myself down. I would just react to, okay, now I'm stressed out. And now I can cut it off at the pass and be like, well, I see that this is going to be stressful, but I'm going to try and remain calm. My kids, magic. They can push buttons and make my eye twitch, but that's their job. Constant lessons in patience.
Yeah, and that's pretty much like life itself, right? Because there's going to be blissful moments, but a lot of time there's stress, and people have like framed stress as like a bad thing, but it's really like the way we respond to stress, is where you find your power. And so, yeah, I mean, life is stressful. There's a lot of things that are on our plate, especially as we are adults in this kind of like fast-paced world. There's a lot of like different kinds of expectations from family members, a spouse,
social media,
right?
Like that people stress out about that a lot.
That's a new one, right?
Yeah, that's a new one.
Yeah, and then obviously like traffic or a job that you fucking hate. Yeah, right.
Someone loses something while they're traveling. You see it. You can see it in any airport. This is one of my favorite people watching things. You can see it in any airport. Someone loses something when they travel.
I saw it. Like, I was at the gate, and you know, there was a family, a father and his son, looked like he was 16 years old. They're about to board the plane, and the son goes, "Oh shit! This is an international flight." He misplaced his passport somewhere in the airport.
Oh.
So his dad, like the mom had already boarded. I guess they had a younger daughter or something. So, you know, he's just like, what of all things, you know, how did you forget your passport, right? And so there's that stress.
And I've seen people lose things at an airport and just be like, okay, hold on. And they calm down. They take a couple deep breaths. And it's usually right around there. And if it's not, it's not. And they're like, okay, I can get through this. Or there's people who freak out and yell and scream, and it never works out well for them.
Yeah. They start yelling at the employees, you know, like blaming the manager, like all that stuff. So, I mean, you see that in like the restaurant business, obviously in bar business.
Maybe once. Maybe once or 1,000 times. But yeah, people just get upset over things that I would find comical. Like, so-and-so stepped on my shoe. Well, there's 300 people in the bar. We're packed. that's gonna happen. Don't wear shoes like that, and don't get mad. And they would lose their temper, and they would flip out, and they'd be so angry over something that was a non-issue to most people, but it really meant a lot to them, and they were gonna fight for it.
Where is your sense of humor come from?
I don't know. It's I just have to say it's probably from drunk people watching, because what people would do would blow my mind, and I just was so shocked by human behavior that I could either let it like disappoint me, or I could just start laughing at it. And I found the more irreverent approach I took to things and the more limits I pushed, the more fun things got. And I try not to offend people, but sometimes the jokes I say are offensive, and that happens. And if you don't know your own limit, how can you know where to draw the line? And, you know, I just started telling jokes at the bar because I was not one of those beautiful, buxom bartenders who could dress scantily and get tips because of my body. I mean, if I dressed scantily, I would get the opposite. People would leave. So I just told jokes, and I wouldn't need to hear someone's story of why they're having a bad day. They wouldn't need to relive that memory. It's just come in, let's tell jokes. Let's make fun of everything. Some things couldn't make fun of. I just left that person alone, or they told me to leave them alone, as I was not their cup of tea.
Yeah, yeah.
And you do. But yeah, it was just dirty bar jokes. That's where it came in. And eventually it got to the point where people are like, how far can you push the limit? What's the dirty joke this week? Is it going to be dirtier than the one last week? So eventually I got into pretty dark humor. And the one thing I do want to tell people is dark jokes are not an open door for racist jokes. Like, it's not the same thing. If I tell a dirty joke, that's a dirty joke. That's not an invitation to start telling racist jokes. And there's a lot of people who confuse the two.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, where is the line, right? Because that's the thing with comedy. And comedy's always like pushing or trying to find where that line is. As with, you know, even learning how to withstand the cold progressively, right? It's like knowing like where is your breaking point or your meltdown point.
What are you not okay with? What are you okay with?
Yeah.
Okay, why are you okay with
you?
it?
Yeah. And that's the thing about like comedy, which I see in you, is that you had that ability to kind of like play around with the line. And then I guess that's where you're like aware of real good comic can like kind of read like people's expressions and
I have a couple keystone jokes, and I'll start with them, and depending on the person's reaction, it lets me know which path I should walk down.
Yeah. So it's like these icebreakers, you know, and you can see like, okay, where does this person stand right now in life?
Yeah, like
that's feedback.
Some people take it seriously, but one of my favorite icebreaker jokes is, you know, if you had a safety word for sex, what would it be? And the length of your safety word lets me know how kinky you are. And it's just, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, like, you know, Oklahoma. That's a lot of syllables to say with a ball gag in your mouth. That's not really a sense. You're maybe like fuzzy handcuffs and maybe a feather sometime, but nothing too extreme. And you hear someone say like, red. Oh, you do some kinky stuff. And it's just a funny icebreaker. And they're like, what's your safety word? And it's usually, but it is what it is. And depending on the reaction from there, I can read it and I'll go one way or the other. And it depends on, you know, the crowd that night. All the jokes always depended on the crowd.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes I would unabashedly still, you know, stand-up comics humor, but I wasn't going on tour saying this is my own. I was telling jokes at a bar to drunk people, so I never really minded. And I usually gave them credit if I remembered. But
what's your experience with alcohol? You know, it being, you know, a way for people to like wind down. Is it something that is like a bad thing, or it really is like
It's not
the
good or bad.
dosage, or like, because you can see that people get social, they're obviously yearning for these kind of things, and they're I guess it just maturity level gets out of hand, like not knowing when's when. What's your experience around alcohol, and how can it be used as a tool, as with anything?
Well, I mean, there's a difference in the crowd that comes in the daytime, your regulars who are coming in after work or maybe for a beer on their lunch break to just relax, and you see them have a beer and it's, okay, and they go back to do their job, and they'll come back afterwards and they'll talk with everybody, and they'll have that communal moment at the bar, and maybe they'll have dinner with their friends, or maybe they'll go home with their wife, and that I see is really healthy, and there's a tribe there. And you can go to a bar you're not familiar with in the daytime, and if you walk in, most all the regulars will always look at you and know you don't belong. And it takes time to work into that circle. And then there's the nighttime crew, and that's generally where your binge drinkers come out, the people who are just like, woo, let's get wasted. And they're the ones who are learning their limits. And they're the ones who are being irresponsible and are pushing themselves farther than is safe. And I'm not saying the guys in the daytime don't do it, but generally they're a little older. They've already gone woo enough times, and now they're just like, all right, have a beer, and then they go home. So I think over time it can be used properly. I've seen it used as a crutch. I've seen people kill themselves with drinking because their doctor said stop or you're going to die, and they didn't stop. So I've seen the full spectrum, 16 years, the full spectrum of really, really bad to really, really good. I've seen people clean up and then have a relapse, and I can't say it's good or bad. It just is. I mean, you can use it for beneficial things. When I'm stressed out, a shot of whiskey really calms me down, and it's not delicious. I still haven't found an alcohol that tastes yummy, but it does its job. It helps calm your body down for a second. But it can be misused, and it's really easy to do. Mm-hmm. And I've seen people fall into a deep, dark depression that's lasted a year, and they had to hit bottom to stop. And they're not willing to listen to you because, they don't want to. And that's why I'm glad I got to change to the Wim Hof method, because generally people here are now like, I want to get better. I want to get healthy. So it's the opposite of just, what I did before.
Right. And there's sort of like a ripening or a timing involved where somebody hits a rock bottom moment. Or have you ever seen anybody kind of wake up from drinking excessively?
Yes.
Just like decided one day, like, and they didn't like really have like a doctor say like, you really need to stop or you're going to die. Like they just said, you know what, this is not working for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's a beautiful moment when it happens. And my biggest hope for that person is that they can keep that drive and keep that initiative, because it's really easy. The brain reinforces the patterns we do constantly. And it knows that if I do this, I know how to deal with this. I know how to deal with the hangover, the pain, people looking at me this way because I drank too much, and they'll stop. And I've seen people stop cigarettes, the drug habits, alcohol, just stop because they don't want that to continue anymore. And unfortunately, I've also seen the opposite happen, where someone was consumed by their vice and they didn't make it. They're not alive anymore. Either, alcohol or heroin or pills. And there's so many things out there for people to choose to numb themselves. It takes a conscious effort to not want to be numb.
What's that culture like, being in it for so many years? What types of people like drink? Why are they drinking? And why are they like regulars per se,
The social atmosphere. You find a bar with people, you come in, they know you, the bartenders know your drink. I mean,
so
my
it's like
regulars.
Cheers.
Yeah. My regulars would come in and I would have their drinks ready for them, because I knew what they wanted. Some of my regulars, I would know that I shouldn't have their drink ready for them because they're going to probably throw me a curveball if I do. So it's that feeling of belonging somewhere. And I've seen people come in business suits, and two drinks later, they're jumping out of taxi cabs. So I really can't begin to guess why someone drinks. But I've seen business meetings come in where everyone's rah, 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 and they get a couple beers in them, and negotiations are going smoothly now. Everyone's relaxed, everyone's having a good time. So I've seen it lube social circles. I've seen it break relationships up. I've seen it cause relationships to form. I think someone besides Homer Simpson said it, but Homer Simpson, you know, alcohol is the cause of and solution to most of the world's problems.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's this amazing aspect of it that, you know, it can be very beneficial, but also like very destructive.
And that's with most things. It's just how you use the tool you're given. And you can use it to, as I said, numb yourself, or you can use it respectively and relax your body and just have a good time and have a couple beers, and that's okay.
What has been your journey like ever since you've had that car accident back in January?
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, it was crazy because we had a Magic Flow Buzz happen where
The day before,
where we take people through a 12-hour plus day of flow where they experience different technologies, breathing methods, your Wim Hof ice baths, instructions, neurofeedback, like the whole gamut of different triggers that put us in that most optimal alive state where we just feel awesome, right? And we're doing it with a bunch of other people, and in this case without drugs and alcohol.
no drugs, no alcohol needed. Yeah,
right?
no.
Just totally natural. And so we had a special guest, Dr. Dan Engel, who himself wrote the concussion repair manual.
Yep.
So he's a medical doctor who had gone through his own concussions multiple times and looked at all the different resources to heal his own brain. So we had this guy at the event, and a day later, you know, you're going home and you get into a rear end collision.
Yeah, the guy, I was stopped and he was going about 55 in a big Chevy Silverado, just blasted into the back of me, like no skid marks or anything. He was having a rough day. He made a mistake, and it happened to be
He
me
was
who
looking
caught
at
it.
his text, right?
He could have been.
Yeah.
Could have been, but I you know, I can't even guess. He was distracted for some reason.
Right.
And that moment of distraction had a consequence. And I can't be angry at him. Like, the truck he hit me with was a truck his grandfather had given him, and his grandfather wasn't alive anymore. So as much as my body can heal, he lost something that tied a memory to someone he loved. So he lost something too. I mean, I got knocked out. I had a very bad concussion. I'm still physically healing from it.
Your wife happened to be like right.
She was behind him. She was in our other car, and she was behind him, and my wife and kids saw me get hit.
Wow.
And she was right there right away. It was great. The kids went inside because it happened right in front of my house. And I didn't want to get into an ambulance with my kids right there. And thankfully, Grandma came down. We went to the hospital. It was at the point where I had to lift my neck up like this because I couldn't move it. It had hurt so much. He hit me so hard he broke my seat. And the next day, I called Dr. Engel, Dr. Scott.
Yeah, Dr. Scott Scher.
Scher,
yeah, who's been a guest on the show. He's has the hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
He suggested I go do that, and he gave me a protocol to follow. And then you put me in touch with Dr. Mark Gordon.
Right.
And I've been on his protocol for about 2 or 3 months now.
Yeah. And we even had like Dr. Harry McElroy, another guest.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Who is helping people with like CBDs and THC, like basically cannabis medicine for pain, and also help heal the brain.
CBDs help reduce inflammation. And I've been taking CBDs since the first day after my concussion. And it's non-psychoactive, so I'm not like getting stoned or anything, but it brings down the inflammation in my body, which is what I needed to have done after a concussion, because it's brain inflammation, and that's not good.
The timing was crazy because you had all these resources. Like,
when I told them I was going to contact them again, I really didn't mean in a clinical way, but it just turned out to work like that. Like, you know, work with concussion doctors. Why not get a concussion and see how that works out? And I wish I can say I remember the months of February and March, but they're kind of fuzzy, like my brain was rebooting. But then I got on, as I said, Dr. Mark Gordon's protocol, and it kind of lifted the cloud. I'm still having some memory issues, like trying to remember stuff, but that's normal.
Right.
I was fortunate in talking to Sean Dollar.
Yeah.
The big wave surfer?
Yeah, big wave surfer.
He suffered a massive concussion a couple years ago. And I was really starting to stress out that I wasn't healing quickly enough. And he's like, don't worry about healing quickly, just heal correctly. And so just, he's been on his journey, and it was really inspirational to hear his journey through healing and how it does take time. A brain injury is a big thing. And not to stress out about it, which thankfully I can do breath work when I start to feel a little anxious or stressed, or sit in the ice and calm myself down. But basically I'm not trying to heal quickly anymore, because I made a video right when this happened that I'm going to heal as fast as I can. But that was the day after a concussion. And now I just want to heal best.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was a humbling experience. And it wasn't good or bad. It just was. It happened, and it just happened to be me who was involved. And a lot of people say, oh, that's terrible. Well, it doesn't have to be. I feel better as a human being today than I did in January. And I don't know if I hadn't gotten hit by that car, if I would feel as good as I do now. And I still have a lot ways to go. But
like in terms of your attitude and your like joy for life has all been enhanced.
Yeah.
You're still healing physically, but you had all these resources and tools.
Thankfully.
Yeah, right. Like, and you actually took action to use them. You know, a lot of people have it right in front of them, and you know, they're not gonna, they're the horse that won't drink the water, you know?
Yeah. That's the difference between staring at the ice bath and getting in. And thankfully I'd practiced getting in enough that when it was an uncomfortable situation and I had to admit I was completely out of my element and I needed to depend on the expertise of other people. And thankfully the people who were lending me their expertise were caring, compassionate, and gracious enough to help me. Like I don't know where I would be without those people. The modern day health system, it would have failed me. I went to a couple neurologists, and one of them just said, why are you in my office? Why are you here? I'm like, 'cause I have a concussion. I want you to help me with this. He said, there's nothing I can do. Do you want some note for your lawyer that says you're hurt or something? Said, no, I want the headaches to go away. I want to be able to focus for more than 5 minutes at a time. I want to be back. I want to have my old self back. He's like, no one can do that for you. You just got to wait 6 months to a year and see how your brain heals. And that was disheartening. And thankfully there were other doctors who said, well, we're going to try something different. We'll see if this works. And thankfully it did.
Right. Which they've had the track record of many people that recovered fully and almost better than their pre-injury status. Right. So what are some of the challenges that you're still going through at this moment, and like how much has healed since, you know?
Well, the beginning of the concussion is like a fog, and it was like I was walking through a cloud. I couldn't remember 10 minutes ago. To put it simply, I was seeing 2 + 2 = 5. So my whole version of reality was skewed. I was not perceiving reality correctly. It was my truth, but my truth was wrong. And unfortunately, I wasn't the nicest person to be around. And I am so honored that my wife called me on it. And she said, no, this isn't right. 2 + 2 is not 5. 2 + 2 is 4. And the fact that you're saying it's 5 shows you how off you are right now. And if I hadn't been receptive to that, I don't think I'd be as far along as I am now. I had to admit that I wasn't seeing things correctly, and that was the hardest part, where you depend on your view, your eyes, your perception to be what it is, and then finding out that it's wrong was a tough moment, but it was necessary.
And you hear this frustration with anybody suffering from traumatic brain injuries and concussions, whatever form that it takes, but their sense of reality skewed. The migraines, the headaches, the depression, the darkness, the anger, like quick
uncontrollable
to snap. Yeah.
My wife, thankfully I listened to her then too. I would get mad at my kids, and thankfully they're so understanding. They're like, my wife would explain, he's got a head injury. He's your dad, but you need to give him a little space. And I would go to the room in the dark. My head would stop pounding, and I still get headaches. I have trouble, if I don't write things down, remembering them the next day. If it gets to be a couple weeks out, I'll remember, but I've dropped a lot of balls recently, and that's okay. That's just part of the healing process. If I beat myself up about it, I mean, they're already on the ground. What am I supposed to do? All I do is just pick them up and try my best.
And you communicate to these people, you say apologize.
Of course, and own it.
Yeah, own it, and like not use it as an excuse. You're like, listen, I'm still healing,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I thank a lot of people for their patience. Thank you for being patient with me, and it works. And sometimes people are like, I don't want to work with you anymore, and it's like, I'm okay. I can't try and convince you to do something you don't want to do, and that's all right. The path is the path, and I just have to keep walking, and I know eventually I'll get to where I'm supposed to go.
Any final words, Chuck, for the audience and everything that we covered, from the Wim Hof method, Wim himself, to a
little bit of everything.
Yeah, like comedy to listening, awareness. The type of culture that happens, the tools that are used in life and the maturity that it takes.
Well, if I had any last words, it would be, the way you handle your stress and your unpleasantness is vital to being happy. A lot of people say, oh, why is this happening to me? And I don't know why they're taking it so personal. It's happening, and they just happen to be affected. It's not good or bad. It's an experience. Life is just a series of experiences. You can label them good, you can label them bad, but if you learn from them, you've learned something. So learn from all of your experiences. And if the lesson you learned is, I don't ever want that to happen again, I don't want that to do it again, take steps to ensure it doesn't. See the reality you want and step into it. Even the smallest step towards your goals is a beneficial step. So baby steps, minor steps to a big goal.
Were you a drunken Tao master before?
I've done my share of drunken mastering, but no, it's in the theater world. It teaches you how to just roll with the punches. The show starts at 8:00. It doesn't matter what's going on. The show has to start. So you can either be upset, or you can just be like, well, looks like we're not having that light tonight, and you just go. And you just have to accept the fact that it's not perfect, and life is rarely perfect.
That the show goes on.
The show goes on, and you can smile and enjoy the show, or you can get upset over little inconsequential things. And I'd say just smile and enjoy the show.
Yeah, and do your best.
Do your best.
Yeah.
And even if you think you failed, if you learned something, you didn't. You didn't. People assume failure over so many things. Oh, I lost. I'm not as good as that person. Well, practice. Maybe they're naturally inclined and you'll never be as good as them, but at least you tried. The only thing you fail at is things you don't try. So try. And I say fail grandly. I would rather fail epically and not accomplish something than never know.
Yeah, you're pretty good at that in your whole life.
I am epic. I can fail epically.
Yeah,
and be okay with
but look
that.
where it landed you.
Exactly.
You're an amazing human being, man.
Well, thank you. So are you, sir. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. And on the last note, where can people find out more about you?
I have a webpage, icedvikingbreathworks.com. The WimHofMethod.com page is where I post most of my events and retreats. And yeah.
And what is it that you offer?
Fundamental workshops, weekend retreats, corporate workshops, week-long retreats. It could be at your location, or we'll pick another one. I want to go to Hawaii, so let's go there.
Yes. Aloha for sure, man.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't call myself a life coach or business venture coach or anything like that. I just help teach people how to breathe and freeze. And through that, they can extrapolate any lesson they want. Try to help people be a little more be comfortable in the uncomfortable.
And that's cool. And one final thing that you do offer every Monday night, which is very powerful, is your online breathing class, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, how can people get in touch with you to be part of that?
The link's on my webpage for the Monday night breath work. And it's just, for people to breathe with a group of people. Some instructors go out in the park and do beautiful outdoor breath work in the park. But in the summer in Sacramento, it's 110 degrees, and that is just almost unbearable. So I thought about, moving into an online venue, and people can do it from the safety of their own home. I turn off everyone's camera, everyone's microphone, so they can just have their space. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's cool because it's international too,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen it grow. So one last time, what's your website again?
IcedVikingBreathworks.com.
So iced with a D at the end.
Mm-hmm. Iced with a D.
Okay.
IcedVikingBreathworks.com.
Boom.
I spelled it.
Well, Chuck, thank you so much for coming on to
Thank
Hangry
you,
and
good
Horny,
sir.
brother.
My pleasure.